Early October 1982, Logan, the typically quiet county seat of Ohio's Hocking Hills, is shocked by a pair of frightful murders and dismemberments. What follows is a twisting story involving lovers, villains, botched investigations, witchcraft, drugs, a wrongful conviction, and the community's loss of life and innocence. This is Township Falls.
Chapter 8, Nature of the Beast. Hi, and welcome back to the Township Falls podcast. My name is Sarah, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Adam. We are close to the end of the story, so I would like to encourage you to keep getting in touch. We have been blown away by the interest in this podcast. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. It really helps to spread the podcast if you share it with your true crime-loving friends, and if you leave a review on Apple Podcasts. In the last episode, we watched as this mystery began to unfold, resulting in the arrest of two suspects, one whom admitted to the murders. Warning, the following episode is an account of the final day of Annette Cooper and Todd Schultz, leading to their death, and just after. These details are graphic, as such listener discretion is advised. To accompany this episode, and for the listener's reference, we have included a map of the events and how they played out.
Monday, October 4th, 1982, 4:20 a.m. The neighbor of Joyce Gleason is awakened by a knock on her door. She's confronted with Annette Cooper and Todd Schultz, who are seeking Joyce Gleason, a Perry County drug counselor. The teens are told that Mrs. Gleason lives next door. As they are departing, Annette is overheard saying, "This will upset him. He will go to the police, if nothing else, to make a report. Dale will help us. Dale will believe us." The two knock on Mrs. Gleason's door.
Dawn. Farmer Dale Johnston feeds the animals on his property. Dale uses a common feed, the bags of which will come back to haunt him in the courtroom. Dale also milks the family's dairy cow. The day's weather looks promising. 16-year-old Michelle Cooper boards a Logan Hocking School District bus. She attends Logan High School, which in 1982 sits on the hill on North Street. Although Michelle is a morning bus rider, she is often picked up by a parent or walks to Dr. Mason's office, where you'll remember Sarah is a receptionist. On this day, the teen has a doctor's appointment after school.
7:30 a.m. The day after my 7th birthday, I get up for school. My daily routine rarely wavers. My mom is on it. Breakfast? Check. School clothes? Check. Reluctantly, I brush my teeth and follow my mom through the trailer park we live in to the bus stop. A nice breeze accompanies the 60-degree temperature. Soon we're joined by the neighbor boy Trent and his dad. Bus driver David Scott picks us up. After a few more stops, having passed the Sunoco station on 664, we pause for the railroad tracks at West Logan. Scott routinely opens the bus door to listen down the tracks for any incoming trains. Little do we know what would occur in just a few hours not far from where our bus sits idling. Hearing only the bus motor, Scott closes the door, proceeds to cross the Falls Mill Bridge, then takes a ride onto Hunter Street. In a blur, we pass McDonald's with its railroad theme, Dutch's Deli, Graff Gifts, Dickens Barbershop, the Colonial Inn Restaurant. A quick turn on the West Street, and we are at West School.
Approximately 8 a.m., Sarah Johnston kisses Dale goodbye and heads to Logan. Today will be a swing shift for Sarah, as the optometrist will see patients in the twilight hours. The doctor's office is on the bottom floor of a large home, located on the corner of Market and 2nd Street. 1 block from the courthouse, sheriff's office, and the county jail. Her duties include answering the telephones, scheduling appointments, and managing the patients in the waiting area.
9 o'clock a.m. After his morning chores, Dale climbs into his truck and drives to Cherry's in Logan in order to gas up his pickup. This is confirmed as a check was used in the transaction. Dale then heads to a friend's farm near Old Man's Cave in order to pick up the 100 bales of hay that's being stored for him. Dale has a couple of options here. The scenic country route would take him over to Mulberry Bridge, past Cacklemacker Park, and onto 93 South. The more direct route would be to take the next exit at 664 and head south. Either way, it's academic, for the difference between the two routes differ only by a few minutes.
Johnston then proceeds to load up the hay bales. Typically, farmers follow the 24 rule, whereas there should be 8 bales on the bottom layer, 10 bales in the middle, followed by 6 on top. If these are the standard-sized 85-pound bales, this will result in a ton of hay. Furthermore, it is decently secured in this manner. Dale has 100 bales to load. Johnston stated that because of his bad back, he was only able to load 2 or 3 bales at a time before he needed to rest. As a result, he says that a job should have taken him half a day took way more time. That leaves a minimum time of 32 minutes if Dale takes a 1-minute break after every 3 bales, or 72 minutes if he is taking that same 1-minute break after every 2 bales. He would have had to do it 4 times. Moreover, that is assuming he could fit the extra bale every load, perhaps in the cab. Otherwise, he would have been shorted 4 bales. With a ton of hay, the journey would slow Dale. Approximately 30 minutes from the farm, off 664 to his property near New Plymouth. So yes, throw in lunch, and this took all day for old Dale.
Todd drops Annette off and heads back to Logan. In those days, Route 33 would have been the quickest route. Schultz does not have a job to report to. He does, however, stop to talk to his dad at the fire station on Main Street. This is likely where Todd is reminded of the evening meeting at the firehouse. Todd soon departs. His father watches him for the final time as he drives down Mulberry Street.
Todd next heads to his Henrietta Street home, where he eats a sandwich with his mother, Sandra. During their light lunch, Ms. Schultz asks Todd to drop off his brother Eric at his soccer practice at the fairgrounds at 6 p.m. She also tells him that he will need to be picked up afterwards around 7. After lunch, Todd walks next door to converse with his neighbor, Will Kernan. Kernan, an attorney and family friend, is consulted regarding the car that Annette was promised by Dale. Mr. Kernan advises that parent-child agreements cannot be enforced in court.
After a weekend's anticipation, Annette is elated to hear that she has scored not 1, but 2 A's in her computer class. Unfortunately, a computer broke down in her class, which had to be canceled for the afternoon. It is unknown if Annette uses a college payphone to call Todd or gets a ride from a classmate. There's even that possibility that she's driving the very car that has caused so much conflict with the two families' lives.
What is known is that at 2:45 p.m., Annette arrives at the Henrietta Avenue home. Annette is reported to be in a great mood, likely from the high marks on her college exams. It also doesn't hurt that she is off from school early on a beautiful October day. As the temperature outside steadily rises to a warm 74 degrees, Annette eats a sandwich and drinks a glass of milk. She then joins Todd upstairs.
3:50 p.m. Bus driver Dave Scott is already idling and waiting on Hunter Street. The school safety patrol are present to ensure that there will be no running to the bus or any other such fun to be had. I board the bus, where I'm assigned a seat with mean-looking 6th grader Carl Arnett, who entertains his ride by eating white grapes while glaring at me. I'm able to tone Carl out, thinking about soccer practice.
4 p.m., Sandra Schultz observes a seemingly upset Annette head downstairs and out the front door. The young lady starts walking towards downtown Logan. Sandra yells to Todd that Annette just left and seems to be upset about something, a situation she finds to be odd, as Todd customarily accompanies his girlfriend to the front door. Todd catches up with Annette.
Todd communicates to his mother that all is well. Soon the two are seen heading towards Gallagher Avenue.
4:25 p.m. Near the intersection of Gallagher and Henrietta, George Groves and his landlady, Clara Anderson, sit on the porch. They watch as Annette and Todd have what they'll describe as a little lover's quarrel. For just as quickly as it begins, the two walk off together hand in hand toward the railroad. Though the time will fluctuate, Steve Ryan will claim that he saw 2 teens walking on the sidewalk. He'll report to authorities that an older, thin man later changed to 2 men, driving a car, later changed to a truck, stops and yells at the teens, "Where the hell have you been? I've been looking for you. Get in here." Ryan's testimony will come under heavy scrutiny. He will eventually be hypnotized by investigator Jim Thompson, who prompts Ryan into convenient answers.
4:30 p.m. Taking a break from their afternoon soap operas, Melody Morehouse and a friend are en route to buy a pack of cigarettes. They travel down Motherwell Avenue to where they see Todd and Annette at the stop sign, crossing from the Home Tavern to the area in front of the Wolski Stair Company. Knowing the two, Melody beeps her horn before turning left on the Gallagher. Sarah Johnston leaves Dr. Mason's office to pick up Michelle from her doctor's appointment. The two head home.
4:40 p.m. Logan resident Charles Blosser claims to see the two having sex in a small clearing near the banks of the Hocking River.
4:55 p.m. Scott Cawthon is taking the shortcut to Logan from West Logan via the tracks and trestle. He sees the two on the railroad tracks.
5 p.m. Debbie Bourne sees the couple on the tracks near her West Logan house on Homer Street. Sarah sees Dale talking to 2 men as her and Michelle pull into their parking spot. This isn't uncommon, as workers from the strip mine outfit would often stop and converse with the landowner. Sarah doesn't linger, as she wants to cook supper for the small family before her swing shift resumes. She is soon joined by her husband, who tells her about the hay and likely his ailing back.
5:15 p.m. Annette and Todd come across a yard sale, where they peruse and find a coffee table that they are fond of. A nice little piece of furniture for when they have their own house someday. They put $5 down and ask if they will hold the table, presumably when they have a vehicle with them.
The teens arrive at the home of Kenny and Judy Linscott. From what I gather, when one visited a drug dealer in the 80s, it was customary to smoke a joint with said dealer. Not only does this display camaraderie, but it also gives the buyer enough time so that they don't appear to be going in and out of a home in a flash. That kind of behavior garners attention from the law as well as nosy neighbors. So the idea is to play it slow and cool. Todd and Annette need to find a middle ground, for Todd has to take Eric to and from soccer, as well as attend the meeting with his dad. Furthermore, they are on foot, which could take about 15 minutes to walk the distance.
The Linscotts have company. Not unusual for a drug dealer. Not the most ethical kind of folks either. Joining Kenny and his wife in full party mode are a few other people, including none other than Tex Meyer, the worker from Animal Crackers Petting Zoo. Also present is a chipmunk-looking little guy known as Chester.
Todd buys a quarter bag of weed and either rolls a joint to match the partygoers or throws in on one. He also drinks a can of beer. Annette's comfort level at the party will never be known. Would the presence of Tex Meyer have been a comfort to her, as this was someone she knew, or was the opposite true, whereas she felt in danger?
The little guy, Chester, picks up on this. Tex is getting a bit too familiar around this pretty blonde. As the ingested drugs and alcohol take their toll, the men become bolder. Tex, whose fantasy is to be Annette's boyfriend, begins to openly flirt with her. This leads to some kind of argument between the two. Chester, believing that Todd is not putting Tex in his place, decides to interfere. He first has a double shot of Jack Daniels, and then asks Annette if there is a problem, indicating Tex. He then suggests that she leave the room. As she complies, a frustrated Tex yells at Chester, "You'll pay for what you did!" Chester pulls a little .22 pistol out, holds it hard against Tex's forehead, and asks, "You want to see how this works?" Tex does not.
Chester McKnight sees that act as gallant. After all, Todd didn't interfere. So he's a bit miffed when the couple bid their farewells, likely using the soccer practice as an out. McKnight, in a final plea, asks Annette and Todd if they wanted to party a little more, away from the tense atmosphere. In his drug-addled mind, Annette owes him for his heroics in dealing with the obsessive Tex Meyer. However, Todd reiterates his need to get going. They leave. Chester talks to Kenny, and they follow them. Kenny tells Judy, who is tending to their baby girl, that he is going to pick up more beer. Judy finds that statement odd, particularly when he leaves without taking the car parked out front. There is nowhere near West Logan that one can purchase beer. However, she shrugs, as she is used to her river rat husband fishing the Hocking at all hours. The lovers retrace their steps from earlier and are soon on the tracks. The sun is setting to their right as they head toward the trestle. Within moments, they are hailed from behind by McKnight and Linscott. They're not going to let this go.
5:30 p.m. Shirley Fraser is picking her children up from her mother's house on Homer Street. As she's getting out of her car, she happens to glance in the direction of the railroad tracks, where she sees a blonde girl and two young men. She exchanges glares with McKnight. Chester is ready to fire up a joint on the tracks. However, he waits, feeling exposed, as there are people enjoying the nice weather in their backyards off of Homer Street. Moreover, a woman and her kids seem to be staring at him.
Shirley Fraser, now inside with her mother and children, heads to her mother's kitchen window, where she continues to watch the suspicious-looking young adults on the railroad tracks. She observes one of the men, which she'll later testify had green coveralls and a cap, walk down the embankment away from West Logan into the cornfield. The second man, whom she described as brown-haired, thin, and younger than the other man, soon follows. Mrs. Fraser then observes the blonde girl stomp her feet, tantrum-like, and reluctantly disappear into the corn after the two men.
The foursome find a clearing within the corn stalks. It's a big enough area that Chester can sit down. A couple of joints are smoked. After some time, McKnight remarks to Annette that she's quite cute. Perhaps she's looking for a little fun? At this point, all three of Chester's fellow partiers are aware of the .22 pistol that he has on his person. Furthermore, it is still very much on everyone's mind that not 1/2 hour prior, McKnight pulled that very gun on an acquaintance.
Still, Chester keeps joking with Annette, raising the bar on the tension. When McKnight suggests group sex to an obviously uncomfortable Annette, Todd has had enough. He lunges at Chester.
Chester, in the tussle, pulls his gun out and fires, hitting Todd. Annette immediately screams, to which McKnight turns the gun on her and fires.
5:45 p.m. At Armco Steel, security guard Charles Bartow is locking the warehouse doors when he hears a series of gunshots coming from the direction of the cornfield. His experience tells him that the caliber is a .22.
Mere yards from the Hocking riverbank, two ladies, Mary Collison and Rebecca Troops, are ordering their food via the McDonald's drive-thru when they both hear a series of shots hailing from the cornfield on the other side of the river.
Shirley Fraser is loading her kids in her car bound for her home in Lancaster. She is jolted when she hears gunshots. A burst of 3. This is followed by a blood-curdling scream from a female. "My God, you shot him." Followed by an additional burst of 3 rapid shots. She then watches, stunned, as a few minutes later the man she had seen with the couple creeps out of the cornfield, looks around, stares at her, and disappears down the embankment. She drives away to Lancaster.
As the bodies of Todd Schultz and Annette Cooper lay in the cornfield's setting sun, a grisly plan is formed. This is not the way Chester and Kenny thought things would go. Steps would now need to be taken in order to ensure that they would not get caught. The two lay low, panic and adrenaline waning. They will wait until the sun sets. The two were going to have to be rid of. The ground, which was laced with corn stalks, would be too difficult to dig through. They would have to cut the bodies into manageable pieces so that they could chuck them into the river. The clearing isn't a particularly large area. Kenny's familiar with the lay of the land, as it is essentially his backyard. He leads Chester to a rock outcropping that the river washes when raised, perfect for their twisted deed. Kenny just needs to get his machete back at his place.
The moon is in its waning gibbous phase. Therefore, it's 99% illuminated as the sun disappears into the west. For these two villains, it is both a benefit and a bane. Ideal for traipsing through the cornfield so as not to draw attention that, say, a flashlight would bring. Not so great if anyone is still in their backyard enjoying a Monday evening. Chester McKnight uses this moonlight for his own vile purposes, which is to look at the body of Annette Cooper as he masturbates upon her.
6 o'clock p.m. Sandra Schultz drops Eric off at soccer practice. She then stops at the fire department to drop off Eric's homework. While his neighbors watch the evening news, tuning into what Reagan said or perhaps should have said, Kenny retrieves the big knife, and he returns to the scene.
7 p.m., Sarah Johnston returns to work at Dr. Mason's office. An unreliable witness will later claim to have seen Dale, Annette, and Todd at the optometrist with Sarah. Unfortunately, we know this cannot be, as the two were sadly dead by this time. Other than the false claim, Sarah works an unremarkable shift.
Other than a full-blown electrical blackout, nothing would have prevented my family from missing That's Incredible. It came on at 8 p.m. on Monday evenings. It was the last show I was allowed to watch before bedtime. John Davison with his feathered-ass hair would interview people who could perform inhuman acts like catching bullets with their teeth. You also get a view into other cultures. There was even an underwater hotel to boot. This is all the excitement I'll need. Cuddle with my parents on our couch in our trailer. Think of death-defying stunts. Maybe the awesomeness of Ric Flair. And probably air propelling. Soon my mom tells me to brush my teeth.
1.25 miles away, Kenny and Chester drag the bodies of the two teens to the rock outcropping in the river. The two take turns with the blade. Nasty work. Kenny, an experienced hunter, is more precise, whereas Chester, wild-eyed and uncaring, is more awkward with the cutting. Either way, there is no ceremony to it.
9 p.m. Sarah Johnson closes the office with Dr. Mason. She then heads back to her home on Trowbridge Road.
Sandra Schultz returns to her Henrietta Avenue home. She is returning from her tax class. She notices the Buick and assumes everyone is home for the evening. This is, after all, a school night for little Eric. However, she is baffled when she finds neither Eric, nor Todd, nor Annette at home. Knowing Dawn was on duty and that her son was expected to be at a meeting there, she drives down to the firehouse. She is relieved to find that Eric's coach dropped him off with his dad when no one picked him up. However, the couple aren't with Dawn. She then personally borrows Dawn's apartment keys and pays the place a visit while he finishes his shift. To her dismay, the place is empty.
10 o'clock p.m. As Michelle Cooper lay asleep in her room, a phone call startles Dale and Sarah. A sore Dale picks up to hear a panicked Sandra Schultz. Has Todd and Annette been there? When Dale answers no, she abruptly hangs up.
Tuesday, October 5th, 1982. 12 a.m., the dirt road, if you can call it that gives the farmers access to the cornfield is just off of Homer Street. Here, from an upstairs room, Janice Moyer watches out an upstairs window. In her arms is a fussing infant. A commotion on the road catches her attention. She will remember seeing a parade of vehicles enter the cornfield via the access road. She will be adamant about the order of these vehicles. The first being a darker pickup with a white roll bar, followed by another pickup with a yellow dirt bike in its bed. Finally, a van trailed behind. Each turned on their headlights as they progressed. Janice gets the baby to sleep and wakes her husband Doug. After several minutes of observing, it is dismissed as some kind of wild party.
2 o'clock a.m. Clarence Mason, no relation to the good Dr. Millard Mason, is also a resident of Homer Street in West Logan. Mason works as a night watchman. He decides to take advantage of the bright moon and walk the railroad tracks to work. Progressing towards the trestle, Clarence hears very peculiar noises coming from the cornfield. He describes a sort of rhythmic chanting, grunting, and howling sounds. Not wanting any part of this, Mason heads back to his Homer Street house, hops on his motorcycle, and is so shaken that he takes the long way around.
Mason likely hears the horrible efforts of Lynn Scott and McKnight. As the two hack away at the corpses, screaming obscenities as the reality of the evening dawn upon the two. At some point, Chester, probably near exhaustion, from an adrenaline crash and having lugged the bodies, slips while Kenny is holding an appendage. The resulting machete cut is to the bone and leaves Linscott a bloody mess.
As a final act of evil, one or both of the two killers removes Todd's penis and stuffs it into the mouth of Annette. The testicles are placed into one of Todd's socks. After the dismembering, and likely as a result of the machete slip, Chester does not stay to finish the job. The torsos end up in the river. The intent of this act is unknown. The two depart ways. Kenny will try to dress his wound, however it's bad enough that he will have to visit the emergency room at the Hocking Valley Hospital.
Kenny Linscott will eventually return to the bodies. He will crudely dig shallow graves, a semicircle, simply the results of his random placements. In some cases, trash bags or some other form of plastic is used in an attempt to further conceal the remains. Bags, particularly of the feed variety, would become a source of contention in the trial of Dale Johnston. However, the likelihood of a feed bag, particularly from a common local brand, found in a cornfield should be no revelation. More than likely, said bags drifted from the back of a tractor of the very farmer who owned the cornfield.
9:00 a.m. Sarah Johnston, back at her receptionist desk at Dr. Mason's office, answers the first call of the day. It is a distraught Sandy Schultz. "How could you live with such a pervert?" Schultz goes on to relate that both Todd and Annette are both missing. A shocked Sarah listens on her work phone as Sandra Schultz makes ugly accusations against her husband Dale. "She told me he raped her, and I know what he did to Annette." The call continues in this manner for a few minutes. When it ends, Sarah immediately calls Dale at the trailer.
9:10 a.m. It is 61 degrees out as Dale Johnston has finished his morning routine of feeding the animals and milking the cow. The phone rings. It is Sarah calling from work. She explains the interaction that just occurred between her and Sandy. Dale tells her that he will see to it. Later that day, Dale stops at the Schultz home. Sandra has Dawn come over. An argument ensues. Verbal accusations are made against Johnston about sexually abusing Annette. Johnston is adamant that the girl was never abused. The hostilities, which seem to have been pent up, did nothing to advance the search for the two teens.
Dale next stop is at Dr. Mason's office to relay his experience at the Schultz's home. Sarah Johnston has had enough. Her daughter has been living with the very people who are harassing her. Now she is missing. She loudly exclaims, "I don't care if you rape her every day of the week. I just want my baby back in one piece."
Later that night, Dale will have a dream in which he sees visions of treetops and water.